All right, so blockchain, huh? It seems like it's absolutely everywhere. I mean, from art to finance and yeah, definitely supply chains too.
Yeah.
And, we hear all the time that it's like the answer to finally having totally transparent supply chains, like finally knowing exactly where all our stuff comes from.
Right.
But, is it really all it's cracked up to be? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're going to really put that claim to the test. And to help us do that, we're going to be using some insights from Chris Westland's website.
Okay.
Now, he's an academic, and he's been really digging into all this, the potential of blockchain and supply chains, but also maybe some of the pitfalls.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about this source is that it is his personal website. So these are like his personal musings, not like peer-reviewed research or anything like this.
Exactly. And that's actually what I think makes this deep dive kind of interesting. It's a bit of a different perspective from the usual blockchain hype. I mean, full disclosure, I was totally on board with that hype at first. The idea that I could know like the entire life story of my coffee beans or like, that steak that I'm about to grill. I was
Okay.
like, sign me up.
Yeah.
But we're going to be a bit more critical here, really unpack whether blockchain can actually live up to all those big promises.
Yeah, a little healthy skepticism never hurt, especially with new technology, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So to kind of kick things off, let's look at an example that Westland brings up, which is Walmart.
Oh, okay. Walmart.
Oh, Walmart.
Interesting, huge company, global reach.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to figure out how to make this work, it's probably them, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're massive. They have the resources.
Yeah, and Westland actually mentions that they even had, like, a consultant recommending they use blockchain specifically for tracking their pork, if you can believe that.
They did. They actually ran a pilot program using blockchain to track mangoes a while back,
Oh, wow.
but they ended up scaling it back. So it seems like maybe it wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
Really? So even Walmart, with all their resources, all their power, still hitting some snags.
It seems that way.
So what's the catch? What's holding them and everyone else back from this, supposed blockchain revolution in supply chains?
I think to really get that, we need to understand how blockchain would actually work in practice.
Okay.
So let's imagine, just it's like a hypothetical, a system for tracking pork in China.
Okay.
Let's call it pork chain.
Okay, pork chain, I'm all ears.
So picture this, a farmer issues digital tokens called, let's say, pork coins. And each one of those is linked to a specific pig.
Okay.
And then as that pig moves through the supply chain, so from the farm to the slaughterhouse to the processing plant and so on, those tokens get passed along, digitally, of course.
Okay.
And that creates a record of that pig's entire journey.
Okay, I mean, that sounds simple enough, I guess, but like I have to ask, what's to stop someone from like creating fake pork coins or just like changing the records?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Isn't the whole point of blockchain that it's like super secure?
Yeah, that's the idea, that the blockchain itself is secure, but the information on it, that's not necessarily true just because it's on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, think of it like a really detailed ledger.
Okay.
It's really good at keeping track of transactions, but it can't guarantee that those transactions actually happened or that they reflect reality.
So it's not like a magic truth-telling machine.
No, not quite.
Got it. So what are some real-world problems that could like pop up with our pork chain example?
Well, think about it. So you have this pig, right? And then it's slaughtered, and then it's processed into all these different cuts of meat.
Okay.
So do you need like separate tokens for the ham, the bacon, the chops?
Well, let's see what you mean.
And how do you account for the fact that those different cuts have totally different values?
Yeah, it gets complicated pretty quick.
Exactly. It starts to get really messy really fast.
Okay, so what if a supplier like along the way doesn't even use pork chain? Or what if, and forgive me if this is like paranoid, but what if someone loses their private key? That like super secret password that gives them access to their pork coins?
Well, those are all very real concerns.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the possibility of someone just intentionally trying to cheat the system, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, let's say a dishonest farmer tries to swap a sick pig for a healthy one
Oh, gosh.
and then tries to use pork coin to, cover their tracks. The blockchain wouldn't necessarily prevent that.
Yeah.
It would just record what they entered, right or wrong.
Okay, so I'm starting to see like some of the cracks in the facade here.
Yeah.
But Westland also talks about this sausage problem. What is that all about?
Yeah. So he uses sausages with, all their different ingredients as an example to show how hard it is to really know what's in a product. Like, for sure.
Okay.
Like imagine trying to track every single ingredient in a sausage using blockchain.
Okay.
Every bit of meat, every spice, every
Yeah.
breadcrumb. It just becomes this logistical nightmare.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and even if you could track every single thing, how would a restaurant or even a shopper at home, how would they actually go about verifying that information?
Yeah, would I be like scanning my sausage at the dinner table?
Right, exactly.
That's crazy.
So, the sausage problem isn't just about how complex it is, but also how practical is this? Because even with blockchain, someone could just swap out a cheap ingredient for a higher quality one,
Oh, wow.
and a blockchain, wouldn't know the difference.
It wouldn't be any the
It-
wiser.
yeah, it's kind of like, a digital fingerprint.
Okay.
It can prove that something's unique, but it can't actually tell you what it is.
So it seems like maybe those blockchain cheerleaders are maybe overselling things a bit.
Yeah, just a little.
It sounds like there's a pretty big gap between like the theory and the reality of using this for, complex supply chains.
Absolutely. I think, there's a real need for more critical thinking here
Yeah.
and a less, like, blockchain fixes everything kind of attitude.
Right.
It's a powerful tool, definitely, but it's not a silver bullet.
Yeah, and that brings up like a huge question, right? If not blockchain, then what? What are the real world solutions out there for improving supply chain transparency?
Right. What are the alternatives?
Let's dig into that next. So we've poked some pretty big holes in this whole idea of blockchain, being like the savior of supply chains.
Right.
But that leaves us with a really big question. If not blockchain, then what? What are the actual real world solutions out there?
Yeah, that's the exciting part, right? I
Right.
mean, there's some really innovative approaches already being used,
Okay.
and they might not be as flashy or buzzy as blockchain, but they're getting real results.
Okay.
And one area where I think there's a ton of potential is data analytics.
Okay. Data analytics. I mean, I hear that term all the time, but how does that actually like play out when we're talking about, tracking something like a shipment of pork, all the way across China?
So imagine like you have a whole network of sensors,
Okay.
and they're embedded like throughout that entire journey. I'm talking sensors in trucks, warehouses, maybe even individual packages.
Wow.
And these sensors can track all kinds of data. So we're talking temperature, humidity, location, even things like, vibrations or shocks that could indicate that the product's been mishandled.
Oh, interesting. So instead of like relying on someone to, manually input all that data, we're getting like real-time information straight from the source, like the product itself.
Exactly, yeah.
That sounds a lot more reliable than just hoping that everyone is playing by the rules with a blockchain, honestly.
I think so too. And here's the real key, right? All of that data from those sensors, it gets fed into these like super powerful analytic systems.
Okay.
And those systems can identify like patterns and red flags.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say the temperature in a truck carrying pork, it suddenly spikes above a safe level.
Okay, yeah.
Well, the system could automatically trigger an alert, and then someone could step in and take action immediately.
Wow, that's like having like a digital guardian angel watching over those pork chops, every step of the way.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
No more relying on blind trust or just like hoping for the best, huh?
Exactly. And the cool thing about this is that you can apply data analytics to pretty much any part of the supply chain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we can track delivery times, optimize routes, predict demand, way in advance.
Wow.
You can even spot potential bottlenecks before they cause major disruption.
This is all sounding pretty amazing, but I have to ask, like, what about the cost? All this fancy sensor technology, all this data crunching, that can't be cheap.
Well, there were definitely, upfront costs to implementing these systems, yeah. But, you also have to think about the cost of not having that visibility, right?
It's true.
Like, think about food spoilage, product recalls, logistical inefficiencies. Those can have a massive impact on a company's bottom line.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I bet preventing even one major recall, because of something like contaminated pork could save a company millions, potentially.
Absolutely. And as sensor technology gets cheaper and those data analysis tools get even smarter,
Yeah.
I think the return on investment for this kind of solution, it's only going to go up.
Okay, so data analytics is like a strong contender, but are there other, blockchain alternatives that we should be thinking about?
For sure. Another area that's generating a lot of buzz, and rightfully so, is the Internet of Things, or IoT for sure.
Ah, yes, the IoT, I always hear about it, but honestly, I'm still not quite sure what it is.
So think of it this way. It's basically a giant network of devices.
Okay.
And all of these devices are interconnected. They can communicate with each other, share data, and in a supply chain context.
Yep.
That could mean things like GPS trackers on trucks, smart shelves in warehouses that track inventory,
Oh, wow.
even RFID tags that, follow individual products as they move along.
So it's kind of like taking those sensors we were talking about and like putting them on steroids,
Oh.
creating this massive web of like interconnected information.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. It really takes data collection and that connectivity to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with, really powerful data analytics, you can start to create this like intelligent and transparent supply chain.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Like it seems like the key to really improving supply chains isn't necessarily about any one specific technology, right?
Yeah.
It's more about using data, automation, and connectivity to build a smarter, more efficient, and ultimately more trustworthy system.
I couldn't have said it better myself. We really move beyond just the hype cycles and focus on finding the right tools for the job.
Right.
And sometimes the most effective solutions, they're not the ones making the biggest headlines.
So, like, what does all this mean for someone like me or, for our listeners who are just trying to, like, make sense of this whole crazy world of supply chains and just, like, be more informed about the stuff that we're buying?
I think it means being like a critical consumer of information.
Okay.
Don't just get swept up in the buzzwords or promises of like easy solutions, ask questions, demand evidence,
Yeah.
and look for solutions that are actually like working in the real world.
Be a savvy shopper, not just in terms of, like, price and quality, but also in terms of understanding, like, how a product got to me.
Right.
And what that journey says about the company behind it. I like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And as consumers become more aware and more demanding,
Yeah.
companies are going to have to, they're going to have no choice but to prioritize that transparency and that sustainability in their supply chains.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today.
Yeah, for sure.
Debunked some myths, explored some really exciting alternatives like data analytics and the IoT, and really emphasized the importance of being like informed consumer. So what's next?
Well, I think the next logical step is to take a look at companies that are really getting this right.
Oh, okay.
Companies that are actually using these solutions to build better, more transparent supply chains.
I love it. Let's see some real world success stories and find out what lessons we can learn from them. Okay, so we've talked about, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Now let's get inspired. Who are like the supply chain superstars out there? Who's really like walking the walk and showing us, what's possible?
Well, how about we start with a company that's using data and technology to kind of revolutionize how we get our morning caffeine fix.
Okay. Starbucks. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I love their lattes as much as the next person, but I wouldn't have thought of them as like, supply chain innovators.
Yeah, I get it. But what they've done is actually pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Okay.
They've managed to build this really transparent and traceable supply chain. And for a product, coffee beans, that comes from all over the world.
That's true. Okay. I'm curious. How have they like pulled that off?
Well, they've invested a lot in this digital traceability system.
Okay.
And it basically lets them follow like every single bag of coffee beans from the farm where it was grown to your local Starbucks.
So we're talking more than just like, what country those beans came from.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking like the specific farm, the growing conditions, like the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely, the whole journey. And they're making all that information available to customers.
Oh, wow.
Through their app and their website. You can even scan like a bag of beans at the store.
Oh, really?
And see its whole journey, complete with photos and stories from the farmers who grew it.
That's amazing. It's like a digital passport for your coffee beans.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, what's the benefit for Starbucks? Is this just like clever marketing, or is there a real like business case for being this transparent?
Well, it's definitely more than just marketing. For Starbucks, traceability has like some serious advantages.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, it helps them guarantee the quality and the sustainability of their coffee.
Okay.
Because they know exactly where their beans are coming from. They can work directly with the farmers,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
implement sustainable farming practices,
Yeah.
ensure fair labor conditions, that kind of stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. It gives them like way more control over their supply chain and lets them, kind of get ahead of any problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Second, it really helps to build their brand reputation and, consumer trust. I
Hmm.
mean, these days, people really care about where their food comes from and how it's produced, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
And by being so transparent, Starbucks is really meeting that demand
Yeah.
and setting themselves apart from the competition. So they're not just selling coffee, they're selling like a story, like a connection to the origin of their product.
Yeah. I mean, it's smart marketing, but it also just seems like the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then third, it helps them manage risk.
Okay.
So let's say there's a problem with a batch of
Good.
coffee.
Yeah.
They can immediately figure out where it came from and take action,
Yeah.
minimize any damage to their brand,
Yeah.
and make sure that, consumers are safe.
Okay, I'm sold. Starbucks is officially on my list of like supply chain heroes.
They're doing some great stuff.
But there have to be other companies out there doing cool things too. Who else is like setting a good example?
Well, another one that's worth mentioning is Patagonia, the outdoor apparel company.
Oh yeah, Patagonia. I mean, I've always admired their like values.
Yeah, they've always been really committed to environmental sustainability,
Right.
and that definitely extends to their supply chain.
But how does that actually like, play out in practice?
So they have this program. It's called the Footprint Chronicles,
Okay.
and it basically provides really, really detailed information about all the factories and suppliers that they work with.
Wow.
They've also been very open about, the challenges that they face in trying to ensure ethical and sustainable sourcing,
Yeah.
and they've kind of invited consumers to be part of that journey,
Yeah.
you know?
So they're not pretending to be perfect.
Yeah.
They're acknowledging that, like, global supply chains are messy and complicated, and they're
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, come along with us. Let's figure this out together." I really respect that.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
They're not just trying to sell products.
Yeah.
They're trying to build a movement, for positive change.
I think I'm seeing like a common thread here. The companies that are really getting this right, they're the ones that are going beyond just, checking the boxes.
Yep.
They're really embracing transparency as like a core value. It's about accountability, building trust, and really engaging with consumers in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. That's a great observation. And I think it really highlights a key takeaway from our deep dive today.
Okay.
The future of supply chains. It's not just about the technology, it's about values.
Mm-hmm.
It's about companies recognizing that they have a responsibility to do things the right way
Yeah.
and consumers demanding that level of accountability.
So we've debunked some myths, we've explored some solutions, and we even found some inspiration along the way. So what's the final thought you want to leave our listeners with today?
I'd say just keep exploring.
Yeah.
Ask questions about the products that you buy.
Hmm.
Support companies that are committed to, transparency and sustainability, and don't be afraid to hold the others accountable.
That's a powerful call to action. I think we all have a role to play in shaping the future of supply chains.
Yeah, we did.
And it really starts with being, informed and engaged consumers.
Exactly.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of supply chain transparency. And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a better world.